Diablo 4 bad. It's not enough. Dead game. There is a never ending supply of just complete bashing of Diablo 4. Not to say that a lot of it isn't valid, but there is such a massive wave that Diablo 4 Blizzard specifically has to overcome in order for people to actually shift their opinions on this. Now, I'm going to talk about the recent update live stream a little bit and some, I guess you'd say, concerns that I really have about some of the things that we heard and some of the things that they said. But also, I want to address some of the comments and talk a little bit about where we're at as a game. Now, I want to say very explicitly that I'm in the same position, and I said this in previously, that people like Rax, people like DM, people like Woody are, where I haven't logged into the game personally in 2.5, close to 3 weeks now. I just haven't been playing the game. The game doesn't really have a lot of content at the end game. This is pretty much where everyone's at this point. You know, unless you're a casual player and you just log in, kill some monsters, which there is a lot of you, you're not playing the game. And that's not a bad thing, right? Like, there's not like a sign that says you gotta be playing Diablo 4. Guys, Baldur's Gate 3 is here. Okay, who is it playing Baldur's Gate? Come on, guys, come on, like, really? Everyone's playing Baldur's Gate 3. It's like, it's such a good game. Starfield just came out. Everyone's had to jump on, play some Starfield. There are so many. Heck, I even launched Skyrim the other day, but just because, you know, I mean, who doesn't go back to the 2011 masterpiece, right? Diablo 4 is not the best game ever. It's not a game that I'm personally playing right now, but that doesn't mean that this live stream wasn't like a pure W. And I think that people lose the ability to kind of look at this. And as I'm saying, I'm just being honest with you all. These are good changes. I don't really know what else to say besides, yeah, these are good changes. Are they enough? Probably not. In fact, I would say that the vast majority of people that have quit the game are never going to return. I don't think that's a hot take at all. It's just not a game that people were expecting, people hoped for, and they got their expectations dashed. They've moved on. They're playing Baldur's Gate 3 for the rest of their life. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I'm kind of tempted to do that too. Maybe I'll be uploading some videos on that game too. But that's regardless of the point, which is, if we're talking about Diablo 4 and we're here to figure out what's good, what's bad for the game, that's what I'm gonna give my opinion on. That's what I'm going to talk about. I don't really care if people think that the game is dead, which, to be fair, it's significantly lower, like 99% of the player base is left. I don't really care if people say the game's trash. I don't really care about any of that. You're totally entitled to your opinion. But what I will say is there are a lot of things that we do have to make sure and critique properly in order for us to actually get things inside the game that we actually want. For those people that are still interested in the game, still interested in coming back, like myself, for Season 2 and playing through the game, maybe to get to level 100 again and try some new things, play the game for a couple weeks and maybe stop playing after that. That's kind of the cycle of these games. You know, I've played Last Epoch quite a bit, actually, way back in beta. I really enjoyed that game, but it was the exact same with that game for me. It's the exact same in PoE. It's the exact same in Diablo 3 for me. All these games, to me, have a very short lifespan, and when the season starts, you play it, and then you move on, and you play another game. That's just kind of how these games work. For me, not for everyone, and not everyone wants the games to be like that. Some people will play Diablo 3 the entire season, right? That's great for them. Some people will play Diablo 2 for their entire lives. That's great for them. Not me. That's not me, and I know that's not a lot of you either. What that means is I'm looking for specific things to make my couple of weeks, maybe a month, maybe 2 months inside the game as great and as enjoyable as possible. And I think that these changes are actually conducive to doing that for me. With that said, though, you best believe I'm jumping back onto Baldur's Gate after I enjoyed myself in Season 2. That's just what's going to happen. Come on, let's not lie here. All right. With that said, there's a few things I want to talk about with this developer update live stream here. So there are a few things that a lot of you had brought up that I think are really, really important to mention. And I didn't mention it because I was just trying to give you all the summary in this video yesterday. Now, a few things that you all specifically commented on, the fact that this is good and that there's a few things that they are going towards that are good for the game, but it's not enough. Hence the title of the video. I agree, this is not enough. They didn't really address the whole endgame content aspect to me. Endgame bosses are basically the same thing. It's just Uber Lilith Part 2, or even the same content over and over again with the same kind of, I guess, a drag loot system after, a couple weeks into the game. That's just what's going to happen, right? I actually, while this may be a hot take, don't think that's ever going to change. Right? Like, if you're looking for endgame content, if you're looking for raids in the game, if you're looking for like the ability to go cut a tree for 10 hours, dude, just launch RuneScape. Like, what do you guys do? Like, RuneScape is so much better of a game to do that type of stuff. Like, that's what I did, right? Like, or if you wanted to like have a great single player story with a lot of character customization and a lot of companion interaction, go play Baldur's Gate 3. Like, that game's out. This game is going to offer you one thing and one thing only: the ability to kill monsters, and that's it. That's what it's offering you, right? And then the secondary aspect of that is those monsters are going to hopefully improve your character. And that's your whole goal during the season. And at some point, you're going to reach a point where your character is going to be how you want it, and that's going to be the lifespan of the game. So the fact that people are saying, oh, I'd love to see more endgame content, I just don't think that's going to happen. With that said, though, with the stuff that we have in the game, there are even more things that a lot of you had mentioned. For example, one of them had been the vampiric powers. And I had mentioned in the video yesterday that it's going to be like Malignant Hearts 2.0, right? This is just what's, kind of the nature of the game. Legendary powers are legendary powers, and Malignant Hearts were basically glorified legendary powers. The legendary powers are a core aspect of the game. So basically the vampiric rights are a new way to introduce new legendary powers under a different name with different upgrading mechanisms. That's kind of how these things are going to be. I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just not as exciting as season 2 could have potentially been for like the actual seasonal mechanics. And there are a few changes that people had mentioned specifically, such as the new unique farming, right? How target farming is it going to be in terms of like how good are you going to be able to, or I guess how often are you going to be able to target farm the specific drops that you need, especially since you need to farm the specific areas in order to unlock the boss fight in order to farm your item. Like, you have to go through multiple steps, and this is a real criticism because like if you're trying to go for a unique, and let's say you have a 1% chance to get in a nightmare dungeon, right? Just over like, I don't know, 20 runs. That's great. Well, what if you need 20 runs to unlock one boss fight, and that one boss fight gives you a 50% chance to drop your unique? It's actually slower to just go farm the boss, right? I mean, granted, it's kind of a given, but this is something that maybe they hadn't thought about, which is like, yeah, you're giving us a target farm, but now we have to do worse things. That's just the nightmare dungeons, right? What if you do Tree of Whispers for 20 times to target farm the unique that you want? No one likes Tree of Whispers, or at least most people are not doing Tree of Whispers, they're doing nightmare dungeons. So is that actually going to be a good thing? They have to make sure that they make the numbers and low enough to where the target farming is actually doing something. Otherwise, it's just dead content, which is really, really unfortunate for the game. There's two other things that I think are really important to know the numbers of. So I'm not going to talk a ton about them because we kind of just need to know the numbers, and that's resistance, as well as the toggleable, hopefully. I'm being optimistic here. I didn't say it's toggleable, but I'm hoping it will be. Auto salvage feature, right? So as many of you critiqued, auto salvage could be a good thing, right? It's going to help you reduce the annoyance. But if you can't toggle it off, then you don't get as much gold. And that's a big criticism, because gold is one of the bigger bottlenecks as you reach the mid to early late game points. And you're absolutely right. So when I say toggleable auto salvage, it needs to be toggleable, because some people are going to like it, some people are not. It's a very easy option. You just click it on, right? Maybe you could even give us some filters, like I don't want to salvage anything under or over 800 item power, right? Something like that. It could be really, really good and a lot of quality of life, but it could also be a really bad thing. Same thing goes for resistances. It could be a fun mechanic to kind of interact with resistances in your gear. It's a whole stat kind of system that we haven't interacted with. But if it ends up being every character just needs to jump a lot of resistance, you need 60% resistance to fight this fight, otherwise you get one shot. Like, yeah, I guess that could be another dynamic, but to me that doesn't seem very exciting. It'd be much more interesting to be like, oh, like, I don't know. I don't even know what you want to do with the resistance, but something that you actually have to just manage with your character rather than like specifically build a specific build to deal with like 3 fights in the game, to where it's like not generally useful, but only for like 5 fights. Because that's what it made it seem. You know, they made it seem like all these different endgame bosses are going to be focused on elemental affinity, and you're going to need elemental resistance for that. To me, that's like the worst way to go about it, because now I don't need resistances for any other part of the game. I just need it for these boss fights because they make me have it, right? That to me is bad. So they need to make sure that they make the overall resistance system actually interactable and actually applying to the entire game, to where you can actually factor it into your builds rather than like doing a separate whole mechanism for 5 boss fights in the game. Of course, there's a lot more that I want to talk about, but I got a lot more videos to make. And I'm super glad that I took a break from Diablo 4 over the last 2.5 weeks. I am much more optimistic, I would say, about Diablo 4. Not to say that I love the game like insanely intensely, but I'm still going to be here playing for season 2. If I loved the game intensely, I would have been playing it for 2.5 weeks, right? I'm just being honest with the W of the update. It's a W. I don't know what else to say. It's a W. For those of you that don't like the game, that's totally fine. I respect it. And, well, maybe I'll see you in Baldur's Gate 3 when we get, like, MMO style Baldur's Gate 3. Love it. See you for the next one.